So, Jena Turner, from 8 to 32 agents in your brokerage this year, top 20 agent under 40. Houston Business Journal, 1 of 10 women to watch in business. You personally close $40 million worth of business, and your side job is you raise 2 little dudes. I think it's awesome. Great to have you here. Tell us what got you here. Take us all the way back to the beginning before real estate and take us on a journey.
Well, some of that's kind of boring, so I'll give you the very quick version of it. But I barely graduated high school, then dropped out of college, then along the way, majored in like 12 different things. And then somehow ended up in the restaurant industry. And a real estate investor sat down at my bar one day and said, and as soon as the recession happened, said, "Hey, I need some help with some properties. Can you help me with that?" And I was like, "Yeah, this isn't actually going great for me." So I'm making like $30 a day. So if I made $35 a day, that would probably be good. And I picked up dry cleaning for a week. And I think I like folded his laundry for a real estate investor. And then all of a sudden he handed me this huge binder and said, "I own 300 doors in the inner city of Houston, and they're not profitable. Can you figure out why?" And I was like, yeah, my parents used to have like some investment properties, and maybe I can figure this out. And it was a mess. And I just started working through it, found out that a lot of doors were actually empty. Rents hadn't been increased in a very long time, poor property management, lots of renovations, and like deferred maintenance needed to be done. And a few months later, I handed the binder back all organized and categorized and said like, "Okay, we're profitable." And he said like, "Wait a second, you like actually were able to figure that out?" And it's like, yeah, I worked 22 hours a day for months, just figuring it out. And he was a tech guy who had like heard about real estate investing, like on late night infomercials, and knew a bunch of other tech guys that also knew nothing about real estate, but dumped a lot of money pre-recession into the real estate industry. And so he started telling other investors about me. And I was 22 years old, college dropout, still kind of bartending when I could, and kind of the black sheep of my family of college graduates and successful people. And I said like, well, maybe I'll start like a little consulting business, and I'm going to charge a lot of money, $20 an hour. And I am going to help these kind of computer nerds figure out how to sell their properties. And so a few years of that went by, and I made a lot of people a lot of money. And as the market started to turn in Houston, one of the fourplexes that was probably the most profitable turnaround wise, went on the market for sale for like $1.5 million. And the luxury agents showed up and they were like, "Hey girl," and I was wearing like denim overalls. I was it was a different time. They're like, "Hey girl, property manager, can you actually do all the accompanied showings for us? Because we don't have time to do that. I know you don't have a real estate license, but if you could just meet these expensive buyers here and just tell them about the property and the rent rolls and stuff, that would be super helpful." And I sold that property essentially with no real estate license in a day. And they said, "Go get your license, become our competition. Like, you're actually really, really smart." We kind of discounted this at first, like the little property manager in overalls, but you know a lot of things. So I went and got my real estate license, and that was 11 years ago, and have been selling houses and not doing any of that consulting work since then, 11 years ago.
Wow. And then from that point in the residential side, how did you generate your business? How did you get your business up and going?
So I actually, a lot of investors that I worked for, I thought were going to be my first clients when I got my real estate license, but a lot of them were really pissed off that they lost me and I cost a lot more as soon as I got my license. So I didn't have this overwhelming book of business. My family probably didn't send me one referral for 5 years. They didn't trust me. I was pretty young too, right? I was 24 and that was pretty young. I mean, I didn't financially, I wasn't in a great position. I still wasn't at that time. And so, a lot of people didn't trust a 24-year-old to sell them a $500,000 property, which was kind of the average sales price in the market I was in. And so I really started with a lot of leasing when I walked into a little boutique real estate office and I started working. There were agents who had been in the industry for a long time and they were like, don't waste your time on leasing. And I was like, honestly, I'm really poor. So anything you don't want, I'll take. And I very quickly became kind of the self-proclaimed leasing queen of our inner loop, inner city kind of area. And back then rentals were like $600 a month. I was getting paid half of that. And then my company took a split. So on average, I was making like $240 on a rental. But I actually kept in contact with all those renters and I treated them like they were $1 million clients because I didn't have any $1 million clients to treat nicely. And some of those people have done probably 10 real estate transactions with me by this point, and some of them are still my biggest referral sources. And it really worked out well because a lot of them became really wealthy as we grew up together. They were 24 at the same time I was, and that's what we started out doing. And now, I have my biggest example of clients. We have their house being staged literally as I speak. We've probably done 10 transactions together and they refer me over $8 million worth of volume a year. So, and they actually still say like, we remember the Jena and the overalls, like, girl, like that's
No way.
So they love being a part of this story of growth. They love seeing, will text me like, hey, we know you're busy with world domination, but don't forget about us.
No way.
And so it's been a journey for them too, that we grew up in.
That is so cool.
Together.
At what point did you start? How long ago as your business grew, did you start bringing on staff members? Where were you at from a volume transaction space?
Yeah, so about 8.5 years ago, I brought on Shannon, who is my director of operations still to this day, as a assistant, like one day a week. She wanted to know about the market or like getting out of her industry into something else. And so part-time 8 years ago, I needed help volume wise with the amount of rental transactions. And then at that point, first time home buyers that we were starting to have. Really the first 3 years we were cruising on apartment locating and rentals and a few sales here and there, but it really took till like year 3 or 4 where I really started selling. So although I've been licensed for 11 years, it's really in the last 8 years that the business has grown a lot. And I had a mentor, one of my first brokers, who told me like, Jena, it's really hard at your age to go from like 0 to 2 million a year in production. And like, it's a little bit easier between like 2 and 4, but like once you start trying to double those numbers, it becomes really hard because you can't actually handle the bandwidth of that many clients. And that stuck with me and Shannon. And we've essentially almost every year been able to double our production. So we've, I don't know, 40 million to 80 million may be difficult. But I guess our team is bringing that. So as a team, we, I think are at probably 120 million for the year. And most of these people that are doing the most amount of production have really just joined us in the last 6 months. So we'll see what.
Oh, you haven't even seen.
Yeah, I haven't even had some of our best producers be with us for more than a quarter.
We'll talk about that though, Jenna, because I know and knowing you almost 2 years now. Has it been that long?
No, it's been 14 months. 14
Gosh,
months.
it seems like 10 years.
Is that good or bad? I don't know if that's great.
It's amazing. Oh, it's awesome. Really good. But there's something that you didn't you didn't say it, but it's what everyone struggles with: capacity. And so you had someone say, hey, listen, your capacity is limited here, it's limited there, you got to hire. And you've been able to scale, and not from a lack of, I mean, you're someone that invests substantially in your business. I've watched you do it. But what would you say if you're talking to someone that's, in the 20, 40, and then, you're looking at going over 100 million, you'll keep growing because you're a grower. What has been the key to your capacity, your ability to handle a lot of things going on with not a ton? Sure, you've got staff and people around you, but as you came up, would it be fair to say you didn't hire staff at the same level that others would, and because you could do more?
Right. So I think we've always been hiring. We're always hiring.
Okay.
And that's how I before I started coaching with you and got to know you and our group, I was more on an admin heavy side, right? I didn't have as many agents. I was more forward facing with my clients, but I've always been an agent that's been pretty admin heavy. So that way I can do what I like to do, which is be the personable person, right? And the face of the company and the face of the client. So I was having as many people do what they could behind the scenes. And I also feel like my real hidden talent is leverage, right? I will outsource everything I can to do the jobs that I like to do. And I've naturally been that way my whole life, right? So that is something that it comes naturally to me. And I'm very aware that, like, if I don't like doing something, I will drag my feet on it. If it is not an absolute hell yes, then I don't need to be doing it. And we find a solution for that. So I think the thought process of always be hiring, you're always hiring, because we were always focused on growing, right? And we knew that if we weren't hiring, we weren't growing. So I always am, I literally right now, we have a few job postings out for staff, for salaried staff. And my approach really with my staff that's doing this interviewing process now for me and has kind of taken over that role is like, just hire 3. Like if you find 3 good candidates, like hire 3, because our business will grow to match the level of those 3. And maybe like one won't be a good fit, right? Or somebody won't work out, but like, Shannon's saying like, how the hell are we going to afford that? And I'm like, well, somebody's going to weed themselves out because my luck, right? Like tell me the time that we've actually just hit it out of the park with, these hires where like, everybody's been perfect. Like, no, it's not it. Somebody's not going to be the right fit. Somebody's going to have to go on maternity leave. Like something is going to happen, because I just don't have that good of luck where like we'd hire 3 and they'd all be great. And if I did, and they all were great, then our business would grow to fill that gap.
Good for you. That's so good. I was just talking to our pal Sanit earlier today, and he talked about that. He said, so many people have retention issues with agents because they let staff get burnt out and overwhelm them, and they don't realize that it's not just a staff issue. It reverbs back to the agents all the time. I mean, it's a super, super simple equation. It's not just your relationship with the agent, it's the employees and how they feel about it. I mean, simple. At what point did you move into buying leads? And if you look at your business, what percentage of your business prior to where you just said, okay, I'm going for this thing, I'm going to start bringing agents in? But prior to that, how much of your business and or when did you start getting into the lead game?
Really just in the last 6 months. So, and we haven't seen the like full effects of it. It's a very small amount of our closings still. I mean, we may be at, I think January will probably be at like 10% of our closings are company generated leads that we've paid for. And the other 90% is either my sphere or the agent's sphere, or that's how I showed up as a leader for the last, really, I've owned the brokerage for 3 years. And before that I had like a very small team, but in the time that I've been a leader in real estate, the only thing I've been able to teach agents is like, work your sphere. This is what I do. This is what this is what you can do to prospect and that sort of thing. But it's been very like organic. And so the lead game was 6 months ago. And I just saw this, everybody's talking about like the next thing in real estate, what's going to happen, the big names, right? Like the Zillows and the Open Doors and all these things, right? And I was like, gosh, that sounds really scary. That sounds kind of terrifying. And, I've always been an agent who I preach on, like, you take care of the clients you take care of the people you love, like, and they will keep sending you business. I had stood by that for as long as I could. And then all of a sudden I was like, well, okay, I'm saying that very confidently out loud, but there's a little bit of me that's like, I don't know that I can compete with Zillow, right? Like, I don't know, because I am on Amazon buying everything. Like my children's diapers come from Amazon because it's easy and I don't have to deal. So they're right. Some of this is easy to just go and click a button and do it that way. And so how are we going to compete with that? So I wanted to have some market share of some sort of additional lead source. I didn't realize how well we would do in that. And I think it's because me and the team, we learned to pivot so quickly. We threw all this money and I just said, like, let's go, let's see if it works. Said like, okay, well, the phone's ringing a lot. Now what? Now we have to have a plan. So like all of a sudden Shannon and I were answering the phone, which is like, that shouldn't be I'm still selling houses, raising children, now leading 30 agents and 7 staff. And all of a sudden I'm the ISA. Like, what are we doing here? So we had to pivot really quickly because from a logistics standpoint, it wasn't going to work out well for us to maintain that for more than a couple of weeks. Right. And we got systems in place, and I think every day we improve them a little bit. I think the biggest thing that our staff learns when they come to work here is that how we did it yesterday, we are constantly changing, we are constantly evolving, because we're getting smarter every day. We're doing something a little bit better every day. And we're saying to each other, we're giving each other grace in this and saying, like, I know that this was your job. Like, I just had my full-time ISA, my first one, who helped me with this baby. She finally listened to me. I told her 2 years ago that she needs to be a full-time agent. And then she's like, no, I want a salary. It's safe. It's a safe, warm place. And sure enough, she came in here and quit and said, like, I want to be an agent. You're right. You're right. 2 years later, Jena, I will finally listen to you. And you're right. I should be a full-time agent. And so she quit on me as an ISA, but she's still here killing it. And I had to come to her with so much grace and say, like, you're going to hear a lot of things in the next few weeks as we find your replacement, that like, we've changed from when you did the job, but that doesn't mean that you did a bad job. That means that you helped me learn how to figure it out initially. And I'm so thankful for that. But now we know a little bit better, and we're just going to keep moving forward. And I think the honesty in that to her was like, I was a little bit hurt. Like, I was a little bit hurt that I left this job. And then I hear you guys are doing all these things. And I had to apologize to her and be like, listen, I kind of set you up for failure with this, because now we're smarter and we know what we should be doing better. So I think that we all just know that we say around here almost every day, like, I know that's how we used to do it, but we got to do it this way going forward. And every day is a little bit different.
Beautiful. How many times in the next step that you knew you needed to take, did you actually know what to do next?
Well, you told me some things and I listened really well, except to my mom. I was listening to people who I was putting myself in the right rooms where I felt like people who had hurt, they knew what the next right step was. They knew it better than I did because I had no idea. Right. And I can be super confident in a lot of ways, but I am totally humble in saying like, I don't know. I don't know. And I'm going to listen to you because you're going to be the expert on this. So I think I put myself in the right situations where I was just listening to everything around me and saying, what can I take from this person that matches up with our business and implement very quickly? So I don't know that there was any huge epiphany, and I didn't question it much. I just said, well, if that person says this is what I should do, I'm going to try it. And if it doesn't work for us, then we'll just pivot to something that's, we're so used to that. I think that, you and I have talked about before about moms and women in this industry. And I think that one of the things that makes me able to pivot so quickly is I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, right? Like I'm used to juggling some things, right? I'm used to like not having a diaper with me in a restaurant and like having a problem, right? So like, no offense to the dudes, I'm smarter than them in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I was talking to Kelly and I said, I thought about this. I had this reflection before I got on with you I'm just thinking about the conversation. It's so great to speak with and interview women in leadership that are entrepreneurs because they can inspire other women. And then like after all these years, I'm like, wait a minute. How about the men who do a fraction of what a mom pulls off, what a wife pulls off, the inspiration that women can have on men, because the capacity is just, it's massive. I mean, big time. Here's my question though, too, because you are an investor of your time and your dollars. I saw you had posted something recently. People, it may look like I'm just living the jet setting life out here when no, I know you're in deep with Eric and looking at operation stuff. You're spending time with Veronica, or if there's a Deborah Beagle who's in the room, or just all of your friends with all the information. And you stated it, but I want people to hear it again, because I think what the difference maker for people like you and a lot of your peers and friends in your group versus those who may not experience the growth is they're paralyzed by overwhelm. And here's what I mean. They go to this seminar, that person, Sunit's going to say, do ISA this way. And Veronica may do it that way. And Lori Reeder may do it this way. And Dan Beer may do it that way. And you've sat in those rooms where each one of them, and they're all right because they all do really well, just like you. How do you distill it down? You said it, but share it with people. Hey, listen, you're going to hear this person say this person say that, and they're all successful. How would you tell people, Jena, to distill it down and take action instead of being paralyzed and not questioning it?
Yeah, so I just look at any continuing education of any kind that I'm doing, any conference, any coaching, I am looking literally like if there's a person that I admire, that I know is really smart in their area of this business, and they're getting coffee at the hotel lobby, Starbucks, you better, that I'm going to creepily sneak in behind them and be like, let me buy your coffee. I'm going to get some nugget out of them. But I think that a lot of times, especially now that I'm doing coaching, I've actually noticed this a lot of now my coaching clients are saying, do you think this is a good investment on what do you think the black and white things I'm going to get out of this are? And I hear that and I'm like, I've never thought that way before in my life. Like I've never actually invested in anything that I've done for my business saying like, well, it will be worthwhile to spend this much amount of money on coaching or on an event or on a flight or on whatever, if I get the Bible, if they hand me the Bible, right? Like they just say like, this is a framework. It doesn't work that way. I think that you just have to think like, if you are in the right rooms, in the right situations, there's going to be something that is spoken to you that day. That is something that should shift even the tiniest little thing in your head to get you moving to the next step. A lot of times, and now like from the coaching side of it, I see like you know what? You shouldn't actually be worried about what CRM people are using. You know what you need? You need a little bit of a mental shift of something that's going on in your personal life so that you're able to receive the message about the CRM the right way the next time, right? And so I don't look at anything that I do investment wise as like, well, it'll be worth it if I get XYZ out of this. It's like a little bit of FOMO for sure. Fear of missing out. For those who don't know what that is, I am one of the youngest people, I think, in the Cheplak crew. So, but a little bit of it is FOMO because I'm like, oh man, they're in that room. I know that that person really excels at this in their business, and they may not even be a speaker on that stage, but if they're going to the thing, maybe I can find them in the hotel lobby, Starbucks, and convince them to give me some nuggets. So I really look at, I don't know what I need to know. I just know that I need to be in the rooms with people who probably know something that I need to know. If that makes
Well, I
sense.
think what's really neat, you've heard me say it, business intimacy. You know, and I don't know what level you and Dan knew each other, but after the hike we did in Tahoe, I mean, and now it's like, you know, you both got to know each other. He's a great operator. He has a great respect for you too. And it just builds that bond then too, where it's, hey, Dan, you know, just building those, people talk about relationship, but when you can come to understand someone at a deeper level, that's the shortcut every single time. I'll still, that was, Brittany and I still laugh about that after the hike you guys. Great.
Yeah, no, I didn't know much about Dan, but I
Yeah, I
knew that
didn't think you guys had really spent time together.
no, I knew that I needed to know him, right? And just said
Mm,
like, I don't know what I need to know from him, but I know that I need to know him.
right.
So, and he's one of my good friends. And actually, I was telling this story to our new sales manager the other day
Mhm.
about Dan's interaction with me and me poking fun at Dan, which is a lot of fun. And he asked me, he's like, Jena, how did a girl from Belleville, Texas, population 3,000 people, one stoplight, barely
Mhm.
graduated high school, like, how did a girl like you end up in the rooms that you're in? And I'm like, because I just forced my way in them. I just said, like, I gotta sit in that room. I also, how overwhelming for me and my confidence level has definitely changed in the 14 months that you've known me. But now I know that I deserve to be in those rooms also, because someone like Dan Beer asked me a question about what CRM I'm using, right? And you're like, what planet is this?
Right.
But you know, I've I've been able to contribute back. And I think when we look at each other as like, we're not looking for an exact science, right? It's not going to translate over in every business, but we're just looking at every human that we meet as the experience. That's the experience, right? Like it's not this is a black and white, this is what you're going to receive from this training. It's, you're going to be in a room with all these humans, and every human is going to provide a different experience in your life. And out of that, you're going to pick up something that's going to improve either your personal life, your business life, or both, hopefully.
You nailed it in what you discovered in coaching, and long before even as one of my coaches, by the way, for those of you that are listening and watching, Jena is, I'm honored and privileged to have her as one of my Cheplak Live coaches. She's been a coach for a long time, and you know, you're leading agents and building up a company and impacting people's lives. You're a coach, but the one thing that she talked about, and I don't want to discount what, you know, you look at, hey, I got in those rooms, but the thing I'd look at is being brave. If you really think about it, think about the people you're coaching. And I'm not picking on anyone. I don't think I know even the people that you're coaching. They're your coaching clients. I mean, they're not coaching with me,
Yeah, I don't think you
but
guys have ever talked, no?
no. But would you say that bravery, as you look at your friends and your peers, is a big part of it? I mean, are we all, and by no means been, yeah, we sit with smart people, but there's a lot of people smarter than all of us. But would you say that bravery, you're talking to people right now, they're watching, they're listening, bravery is a big part of it?
Bravery is a huge part of it. And John, like I will continue to say this until the day I die, which now luckily will be a lot further away, but
Yes.
not that many people know when I started coaching with you, I am now at 76 pounds lost. So it's like that's a human. That's actually a pretty that's a big human, right? Or I have a 6-year-old that weighs like 35 pounds. So that's like almost 2 of them. It is 2 of them. And so, part of the bravery for me, I knew when I started coaching with you is that in order to show up, I had my own personal thing. And for me, it was that weight loss. It was some pain management. It was some stuff. For some of my coaching clients, it may be bravery, because their friends and family are kind of saying maybe you don't need to be a big deal, right? And maybe you don't need to grow the business. Aren't we doing just fine, right? And so bravery to them may look different. For me, it was some things going on with my health that made me feel not confident enough to interview agents and say that how great we were until I was in the best internal shape for me. But bravery is showing up in all of my client conversations. It is saying, well, what if we send out an email to 3,000 realtors and they all tell us to go die, right? Or
right.
Screw off, right? And I'm like, well, then they did. And that's the worst thing that can happen, right? And it's the same thing as a listing appointment or a buyer consult where somebody very well could call, you cold call and they say go die. I'm never going to buy from you. I don't want to talk to you. And it's the same thing with recruiting. And it's the same thing with, staff, developing staff for your business. We all had to be brave in wherever we are in our business. That's the number one holdup. Now I didn't know because it was just me and you doing our coaching calls. Now that I'm coaching so many people, I am saying, there's only one common theme here, and it's be brave, take the risk.
Right. Well, and I want to take back, and I love it that you bring that up because I remember that when you were going to launch that email out.
Oh yeah.
And I think there's a lot of things that go on there. Is that what was the response? What happened when you sent the first 3,000?
Oh God, yeah, it was. I mean, I'm a really tough negotiator as a realtor. That's kind of been my claim to fame. And I like winning, right? So sometimes I would push it a little bit further than my clients needed me to push it. And so I've pissed a lot of realtors off in 11 years of real estate. And so Shannon and I actually went through this email list and we're like, what realtor was it that was so pissed off at us on this deal? Make sure they're not in there, right?
Right.
We missed some. There were some people who it 100% did not become an overnight success. There's a guy named Barry. I hope Barry watches this. Barry is not a fan. Somewhere in his mom's basement in Texas, Barry has a picture of me and throws darts at it. Still to this day, he has not let this shit go. And when he got my recruiting email, it was not good. Barry was very mad. And so we would save these responses. People would be like, who the hell do you think you are? What makes you entitled to give free advice? What are you trying to do? And then the nice responses started coming in, and that would build our confidence level to but every time we press send, it was a little bit oh, okay, just wait. And at a certain point, we finally removed everyone I had really made mad over the last 11 years in real estate, which made it a much nicer experience. But, it was tough. It was very risky. But I knew that in order to do that and do it confidently, I had to be doing the work behind the scenes to really feel confident about it. And I kind of mentioned this. I was in a podcast with Grant Wise recently.
Oh, yeah.
and I was like, I can't believe I'm referencing going to the gym for Jena Turner. That's a really weird reference for me to make. But you know, when you go to the gym and you eat healthy, you like, even if the scale's not moving or you're not like lifting more or whatever, you have the confidence that like I'm doing the work that makes me feel better or skinnier or stronger or whatever. It's the same thing with recruiting. I knew I was doing the work behind the scenes to develop myself as a leader. I knew I was doing the work behind the scenes I was showing up every day to do the work to show up as the best leader or as the best brokerage. So that way, when I was interviewing someone and they were sitting in front of me, I could confidently say, we are the best brokerage and we are the best option, because I knew that I had gone to the gym or done the prep work that morning. Right. And so I am not fake. And you've seen me with Dan Beer. I will tell Dan Beer exactly what I think in the back of a Suburban.
That didn't sound good, Jena.
No, I'll be like, you know, Dan doesn't like hugs, right? And I'll make fun of him for that a little bit.
Right.
And he's kind of an interesting guy, super smart man, but just
We love him.
I know, I love him. I love him. But I will tell you exactly how it is. So for me to show up authentically and like being okay in recruiting, I had to just be 100% transparent that I was actually doing the work. I couldn't fake it. And I do think that makes me different than a lot of leaders, because I think in real estate and in my past experience with leadership in real estate, everybody talked big game, right? Like everyone that recruited us promised us the world, right? And Shannon and I would get places and we'd be like, oh man, this again. Like, man, we got sold. We got sold on something that didn't exist. And I knew that I never wanted to look an agent in the face and not have delivered what we promised in that interview. So I just had to figure out a way to make sure we could honor it.
Yeah. Well, I want to stay on this because, it's interesting. Y'all are getting to hear and go back to where Jena was at. And one thing I would say is her identity. She focused on her identity, but it wasn't false. It was something she had to do with substance. And I want to fast forward you going from, because here's what happens. And it's what Jena pointed out again in coaching people and even in her own growth was most people would get that first email sent out. They would never send it again. It would knock them down big time. And she kept going, A, and doing the activity, but B, doing the things that was going to make her feel even more confident. Let me tell you guys, fast forward. I had the privilege, was it a month ago? We were in Houston.
Yep. Yeah.
So here, she went from being nervous to push send. And I just want you to capture this. You need to be a lifelong learner. Jena is the first. Okay, I can go learn here, go there, spending time, dollars, and all of those things. But I think the point that I want you guys to get here is you got to be brave and don't quit. She went from being afraid to push send to just a month ago charged a valuable fee, but it wasn't pennies, and had 100 people. Was it roughly 100 people?
Yeah, it was 100 people, 100 people in a ballroom at a hotel in downtown Houston who came to see my friends. Luckily, they showed up, those guys. My friends come and speak, and us offering value to realtors in our market. And actually, John, like you and I we've been on a little bit of a holiday and traveling break, but we actually have probably 15 more realtors joining us in the next few weeks. So we have 7 parking spots assigned at this commercial lease I signed 3 years ago, and we're looking at over 45 people who will work here. So we got some logistics to work through on that. I literally am offering like Uber. I'm like, if you do not have a car, you could absolutely work here. If you have a car, make it a Mini Cooper, right? Like we're street parking. So that event was huge for us in terms of recruiting. And it really just, I think what I didn't understand about recruiting a year and a half ago was educating other realtors and offering value to other realtors is the number one way to recruit in this industry. And there is nothing, it's not about a comp plan. It has nothing to do about any of that. When I opened this brokerage, I had the largest caps in my market. I we don't have any parking spots. Like there's a lot of things that don't make sense where like you should totally go there. But if you want me to hold you accountable to the goals that you set in my office, that's absolutely going to happen here. And you may like it and you may not, but we're going to do it together. And maybe I'll make you laugh a little bit on the way, and you got to trust me and I got to trust you. And they do trust you because you're offering value. Right. And so that is the same way we did with like, sometimes, I hang out with all these people in leadership sometimes. And I think I'm probably in our group, one of the people who's still the closest to production, right? I just stopped working with buyers in May. I literally only go to a handful of listing appointments now. I'm almost all the way out of production. And, but remember when we all started selling houses, like we had to offer value to our clients and we had to like show up as a leader to our clients. It's the same thing with recruiting. And there's a bunch of people that used to be realtors who move into leadership that just like forget what we do. Right? Like this is what we did, right? Like we offered value to our clients and we offer value to our realtors, and that's the game. And that's how you KFR, as we say.
That's it. How have you been able to, because I know that market pretty good. I mean, because I had clients in there. I think it's a #1 market share client. It's bunch of offices. I know that there's a bunch of brands that are heavy. It is a highly competitive marketplace. And, here you are, the same excuses anyone else could have. I mean, no parking. And now I've got all these people and I have no seats for anyone, but you've stayed true to the vision 100%. Here would be my question. And then I want everyone to go back and pay attention to what she said earlier too. 10% of her business that she closes this year, by the time you probably hear this, had closed in 2021, was from leads, business provided by the company. So in other words, I call it, not that people provide leads aren't productive, but I call hers a productivity environment where it depends on the agents going out and hustling the business. What would you say is your superpower in recruiting because I think it's the persona of that person, but here's the second part though too. What is it in your leadership that can get people up and running and productive?
Well, I think, I show up.
Listen, I met, and here's the thing too. I've met some of these women that you've recruited and they're no joke. I mean, they are professional business women. I mean, classy. But let me tell you something. You're not. I mean, they're no joke. They're no games. You have brought in high caliber human beings. How have you done that? I've met them personally.
I think personalities attract in this for sure. I think as transparent as I've always been on social media, my personal Facebook page brings us as a business more business. And
say it again. I mean, do you think leaders and agents discount? I mean, it's talked about, but I mean, like you and I, we're very focused on it. I mean, we know, but I mean, let people know how important it is. I mean, my Facebook page is my business website. Hello.
Yes, that's the same for me. Is that, I got up on stage once for a relaunch event in Tampa and said like, my kids are jerks, right? And like my clients and other realtors also know that their kids are jerks. So like I said what everybody's thinking, right? Like, yes. And they can say like, man, that makes a lot of sense. Like if you are not into like jokes about wearing Spanx and like high heels and your kids being jerks, like we can't be friends. But if you are, you should come work for me for sure. John's
right?
like, I don't know what Spanx are. I only hang out with people with 1% body fat. But everyone else right now is like, see, I like Jena Turner better than John Cheplak because she has Spanx and I have Spanx, and there's only so many people that have 1% body fat. So being authentic to who we are, saying that like this business is hard, right? Like I actually had a conversation last night with my 6-year-old that was kind of difficult because he said he was having a play date this afternoon and he said, Mom, are you gonna be there? And I was like, no, I gotta work. And I was like, but you go and have fun and I'll see you afterwards. And he is like, Mom, you always have to work. And I said, let me ask you something, Nico. What do you love to do? What's your favorite thing that you love to do? You just got a skateboard from Santa. And he's like, I love skateboarding, which he's only been attached to that now for 4 days. So like he's showing a lot of commitment to something he hasn't known very long. But I was like, Nico, mommy loves to work just like you love to skateboard. Like this, we need to come up with a different name for this, like that I'm doing. Like we need to say like making donuts or something, like because work sounds terrible to my 6-year-old and I love it. And I wouldn't be who I am if I wasn't doing the work. But that is a conversation that my female agents that are moms in my office are going to have with their kids too. And I have to show up as a leader to show them like, I know that conversation kind of sucks. We got to do this together. Like we got to say this together. This has to be the story that we give our children because that's how we have to show up for each other. And we're going to understand each other so much better because of that. So it helps me attract the right agents. It helps me retain the right agents because I'm going through all of the same things that they are too. And your tribe is, I got kind of emotional when you started talking about, because I know exactly the 2 girls that you're talking about. I'm so proud of them. I'm so dang proud of them. And I am living vicariously through these people now because they're in the game, like they're selling houses until 9 o'clock in the evenings. And you know what these girls actually told me? They have a policy where they have to show up in heels that are so tall to work, because if they don't feel like they're showing up professional enough for their clients. And I was like, you guys are just badasses. You just are so cool.
That's awesome.
So we're encouraging the good work, right? And that's helping us retain and attract the agents that we want to attract. And 100% of that starts with me because I have to show up authentically to attract the right people.
Well, it's so overused, and I think for anyone from a coaching and teaching perspective, we can have this conversation here. But I think Jena, you model it really well. And if you're listening or watching, watch her social media. And sure, you're going to laugh, and you'll even be surprised, and you'll even think, doggone it, I wish I had the guts to say that. But here's the thing I want you to connect with people is that there's a lot of talk about authenticity, yet people don't really put it into play. And I think we've looked so far past know, like, trust. When you're authentic, Jena creates a greater opportunity for know her, like her, trust her, because she's relatable. It's number one. I mean, that's your piece. Related. I knew when I met those gals sitting down at that table, and they got sport jacket on, slacks and heels, and they're just, I mean, crystal clear. I'm like, yep, they map to you 100%. If it's a year from today, and we're having a conversation, what would your perfect, and no one has it, again, like I said, no one has it right and everyone has it right, because all of our friends do really, really well in their business, yet everyone does it a little bit differently. Everyone does their parenting a little bit differently. For your world, I mean, Brandon Brittingham, I think he wants to sell 500 homes by himself and then have his team do 500 homes and have 30,000. I mean, a year from today, do you see yourself still being in sales, or would your vision be, John, I want to be 100% the visionary leading? What's 12 months look like for you today, from your day to day, and how many agents?
60 days from now, I will be 100% visionary. I don't need a year, John. I'm on my way out here. I'm on my way out the door.
So good. Awesome.
We're clear about that. That's where I'm happiest now. And I love coaching. I love speaking. I love when I get off stage somewhere and somebody walks up to me and is like, this has shifted something. Like I've heard it a different way today that I needed to hear. And that is a super fun job that I didn't know that I needed, but I like. I never thought I would walk away from selling houses. I love that job too, but this is where I know I'm needed and my talents need to be. And so I have to walk into that role as quickly as possible, in my opinion, because if I don't do that, I'm not helping as many people as I can. So me being out of production all the way and like knowing nothing about a lockbox or a sign or a client or would be great. And then a year from now, I just really see that, some people that started with us, I don't know. I don't know that they know that they're ready to get with us to the next step. Like I told you, we're always evolving. All of our staff knows here that the way it was yesterday may not be the way it is tomorrow. We certainly don't want to push anyone out that wants to be a part of that vision, but it's not going to align with everybody, and that's fine. And we're going to show them grace on their way out the door, and we're going to wish the best for them, and we're going to keep attracting the right people to our tribe. We're going to grow something super huge here. And I told actually our team yesterday when we broke even on this huge, I made this huge investment, and I played around and I retyped this Facebook post like 10 times because I was like, can I actually put $175,000 on a Facebook post? Like, does that make me look like a jerk, or does it like to some people that I went to high school with, maybe they're like, she's a jerk for sure.
Yeah, right.
And to some people, they're like, that's nothing, that I'm friends with on. So I'm like, can I do that? Like I typed it and like took it away and then typed it but I did it. And because we made this huge financial investment of like, I mean, we didn't have to borrow any money, but I kind of like took it.
You borrow from yourself.
Yeah. And yesterday we broke even on that investment. And man, that was a really like, I'm not a huge gambler. I've spent some time in Vegas and Louisiana, but geez, like it was putting it all on black was a little bit risky for even for me. I am a risk taker, but that was kind of crazy. And what that also meant is that our agents made $175,000 because we were at a 50-50 split on these company generated leads. And so we had 12 agents. Between 12 agents, they made $175,000 of take home commission that they wouldn't have made if I hadn't made that investment. And, for some of our top agents, that was 20, 30, $40,000. Like, so some of them were like really bringing it home. And then we had some that are just brand new to our company leads team. And that was huge for me. So I said, okay, well, in 6 months, our agents have made $175,000 extra that they wouldn't. And I went ahead and made a statement that in 2022, our company generated leads team would bring home $1 million between them. And I know that I've said that now, and now I've typed it in our company group. And
so it's happening.
So it'll happen. And Shannon's like, where did you make up that number? I was like, I don't know. It sounded good. So like, there's no like real system to it. I just said like $1 million. I want whoever's on that leads team just for, which is really, that's just 10% of our business or less right now. I want them to make $1 million in that 10% or less of our business. And then whatever they sell on top of that is great. Because this isn't their main, like our agents actually don't have to, they have a pretty consistent business. We wanted leads to be the filler that gets them in between with consistent business. And I really am trying to teach our agents that like, this is a long-term game. Every time somebody tells me, there's a quote in here that like, I'm looking out the door. Every time somebody tells me like, well, that lead's not ready to do something till July. I'm like, cool, you're going to need money in July, right? And
yeah,
I was
exactly.
like,
right.
Awesome. All right. They decided to rent for 2 years. Cool. You gonna need money in 2 years? I am, right? Like nothing is dead until it's, until you're dead. And so I wanted this to be a good filler for their personal business, as like they can have some consistency. We also want to make agents financially responsible, because we've all worked in offices where they sell one thing and then they go out and like buy something crazy. And I want our agents to learn to like live and balance and do all that really well. And not have debt and not have these and be financially responsible adults, because they all showed up in their interview and that's what they told me they wanted. That's what agents want. So if I don't hold them accountable to what they told me that they wanted in that interview, then I'm not doing my job.
I want to end on this piece. It's beautiful because it's been hovering, and I go back to a moment. Talk about what, and I think anyone that's listening or watching has figured out that Jena's going to show up as she is. I mean, straight up, no filter, but there's heart in it. Share what holding to your standards. And I'm telling you, I mean, you didn't even check with me on this one. Not that you check with me on anything, but sometimes when you're going to walk into, you guys will bounce it, not check in. Hey, Chep, I'm thinking about doing this. This wasn't, I'm going to check into you. This is, I'm going into the sales meeting and here's the stand I'm going to make. Talk to us about where you're at on standards, because everyone talks about them, but talk about what you did. You walked in your meeting and what was the fallout, if any, and what's happened since then. I think that that's a big piece everyone struggles with. And I think it really leaves us on a high note. Talk about that.
Yeah. So one of our friends, Eric Perez out of Orlando, works for Veronica as her director of operations, is a big fan of me. And and I love him being a big fan of me. He has become such a great friend. And
he's super smart.
You know what? A girl like me with a 2.0 GPA never thought really smart kid.
A nerd. Come on. A nerd.
Yeah.
A nerd
would think I'm so smart.
I love the kid too.
But he came, him and Veronica were in town visiting one of her partners, and he came by the office and he was like, "Where is everybody?" And I was like, "You know what? Things have kind of dropped off here lately. Like people haven't been really showing up to sales meetings and stuff like that. And, sometimes you need that person in your corner. And this is definitely about having the right friends." And he said, "Jena, if I had the opportunity to come to one of your sales meetings, I would never miss a minute. I would never miss a minute. I know like you are talent, like you have so much to offer." And I sat on that for a couple of days and I was like, you know what? I do. That was a confidence, sometimes you just need your girlfriend to tell you like, "Girl, you look good and you're doing great." And Eric did that for me as a friend. He just said like, I would show up here all the time. So I told all of my agents, this was really terrible and probably not well thought out. But I told all my agents that I would be giving away $1,000 at the next sales meeting. And really what that meant was I had a video of you for like 20 minutes that cost somebody $1,000. It wasn't even my $1,000. Like I didn't even pay for it. It was somebody else's coaching video that they shared with me.
Right.
And so I put up this video and my agents were probably really disappointed by you, Chep, and not getting $1,000. No offense. No, they were so motivated. And at the end of it, I was like, I just handed you this. Like you have this resource in here. Like I'm investing money in this for you. And how the heck did you all show up when you thought that there was going to be $1,000? Because what that video just did was earn you the unlimited potential to earn hundreds of thousands of dollars if you really paid attention to it. And I had printed out a bunch of I had to ask Shannon, I'm like, what are those forms that like people fill out when they have to transfer to another brokerage and an MLS? And she's like, MLS transfer forms. I was like, cool, print me 20 of those. And she's like, oh God, she snapped. She's lost it. And I rolled out some new splits. I rolled out some standards about coming in and education and things that we were rolling out education wise in our office. I was like, oh, by the way, your caps are gone. And this is the way we do things now, because not one person sat in that office when I interviewed them and told me that they like, I never interviewed someone that's like, hey, I want to be a realtor that shows up once every 2 weeks and not have anything pending. No one ever told me that in an interview. And so I was like, I show up authentically. Like I've had to transform myself physically. I've physically transformed myself to show up as a leader to you guys. I'm doing the work and it's work. But if you're not doing the work, then I am a fraud. And all I'm doing is running your credit card for your monthly fees. And I'm not getting rich off that. And that is fraud. If I let you stay here, it is fraud. If I let you stay here and I don't offer anything and I don't hold you accountable, then like I am stealing money from you. I am stealing your desk fees every month. And so I said, there's a gazillion brokerages in a 5-mile radius. Pick one, fill out this form. If you don't want to work here, we apologize. I am sorry that I have failed you because I have not held you accountable, but I don't like feeling like crap because you're not doing the work. Like you got to go. And nobody walked out. And everybody said, she's probably lost it. She's right. And I was like, all of my competitors are like, yeah, this is it. This is easy. Jenna Turner has just made it so easy on us to recruit. And, there for a while, we had 100% retention rate of agents. I knew that would change. I used to be very proud of that number. But that number also meant safety. And nobody did anything great by playing it safe. And so I knew that number would change, and it's changing. It's rapidly changing every day now. But for the most part, our agents have stayed and have risen to the occasion. And I think I'm a pretty good judge of character when I initially hired them. So that's been good, but some people are there's gonna be some people who don't align. And I think if you're a leader watching this, you have to say that, like, what's the worst case scenario? And that's what I looked at it as that morning. What is the worst case scenario? Okay, we have 20K caps on each agent. I had 20 agents. So like, here's the worst case scenario. If they all capped, which they're not, because they're not showing up, and this is how much we can earn, and this is how much I would lose annually this year if they all just walk out.
Yep.
I'm real resourceful. And if you put me in, coach, right? Like if I got to sell a house, I got to sell a house. Everyone in this office makes fun of me because I fly out so often from Houston that there's no Uber drivers between 5 and 8 a.m. in Houston in Monday through Friday. I can never find an Uber driver. I have to drive myself to the airport almost every single time. And I literally talk about this every other week with my agents. Like if it hit the fan, you know what I'd be doing? I'd be driving Uber 5 to 8 a.m.
Right?
That's what I'd be doing.
The opportunity time.
Yeah, I'm always looking at it like, what can I do? I asked somebody today, I needed a foundation bid. And I was like, they said, this old man that I've always used for foundation work, he's in the hospital. And I was like, you know what? I should buy that company from that old man. He's got a great company. He's got great reviews. I don't know anything about foundations, but I know that if I had my back against the wall, I could figure it out. I could drive for Uber. If they all walked out, that's what I'd be doing. And I think that mentality of like, what's the worst that can happen? Once you just identify what the worst thing is that can happen, then anything that shows up better than that looks great.
Absolutely. I remember my mentor said to me, I think he had about 5,000 agents at the time. He says, John, I'd watch him when I thought I was young in my leadership. I'd watch him take risks. I said, those are risks. He says, no, they're not risks. He said, here's what I know. Every day, he says, the worst thing I'd have to do is go back to doing open houses on Sundays. He said, that's the worst thing that I'd have to do. And you know what? I did really well on open houses. So there you have it.
That's exactly how I'm thinking, John. So there's some scare in that for sure. But once you identify what the worst thing is, for me, like I just got over COVID for the second time, and people ask me what was the worst symptom. And I was like, having my kids at home from daycare that was the worst symptom of COVID. Like, what are you most scared about with COVID? My kids having to be at home with me.
So good. That's awesome. Jena, I appreciate you, and twofold. I would share it with anyone that's watching or listening. Follow Jena and see what she's doing from a leadership perspective across all of her social channels. There's amazing modeling, but also if you want a coach that's going to support you in growth. The one thing I look at is like myself in coaching, it's the brilliance of the people that these great leaders, Jena's track record, and it will continue to expand, but the resource that she has around her of her friends and great leaders as she shared here. So reach out to her for coaching too. Jena, I love you. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
I don't think I've seen you for this long in a long time. So this feels great.
I know, right? Houston.
This has been a real gift for me. So I appreciate you having me too.
You bet. All right. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks, John.
Bye.
Bye.